Okay, so this is the first live stream that we're going to attempt for OpenStack Basement. Just wanted to try to get live stream set up. This is going to be a pretty short one. Just want to make sure everything works and the displays we have are going to be okay. Uh, so a lot of the things that I've run into, I realized that it's probably just easier if we can get on. You guys can send in your chat questions or whatever. We can take a look at stuff together. A lot of the stuff that I do, um, I end up, having to research it and figure out why it's broken and things like that. But it might just be easier for us to talk about them live. I have a not a very high quality camera on the stream as well. So it is in front of the cloud. So if we want to take a look at something, or I can show you the hardware, whatever you guys want to see. Uh, you know, I do have a new node. So uh, we've been collecting a lot of hardware recently. It seems like. Uh, so what happened was I found another Dell 780 on eBay for like $20. And if you guys have ever bought machines over the internet, you know that uh, the problem is shipping. It costs $30, in the United States to ship a machine that size. So anytime I can get one of these machines for $20, get the whole thing for around $50. I think that's a pretty good deal. So I found a 780 just like we've been using for right at that price, and due to a shipping error, they sent me an additional 780, but it was a small form factor. So that's what this new machine is. I pulled the CD out of there and just stacked a drive on top. It's not the best install, but it will work for our purposes. So we have another machine right now. So we've got some people joining the stream here. Okay, unable to connect to the internet after MAS install. So the internet is always a common problem um, that I see all the time, and most of the time it's related to a network error of some type, but it's always it's always different on everyone's install. So we can take a look at whatever I have configured, and we can try to compare it with your config and see if we can fix it. So the first thing I would tell you to check, what is your current IF? What's IF config look like on the MAS box? Can you ping Google? Does it come back with an actual DNS name? Things like that. Check that first. So if you've deployed, you're going to see the LXC bridge for your containers and for your virtual bridge. But make sure that I don't know how your internet is configured, or your private or your private or public, but this is how we've done. If you're following the site, okay, so you're not able to ping Google. Um, so most of the time with that, I mean that's if you could never ping Google, um, you probably have a DNS issue, I would guess. Uh, it kind of depends how you have your DNS server set up. So take a look at your interfaces file. So your DNS name servers, I always have it check the MAS DHCP DNS server first, and then my public DNS. So check that first. Make sure you're able to do DNS lookup, and hopefully that'll get it resolved. So this is the kind of thing that's thanks for chatting with me and asking these questions. These are the kinds of things that I want to go over in these live chats. Again, I just wanted this one to be short because it's the first time. I just wanted to make sure everything was working. Uh, what I have been working on, and you've seen it, I probably haven't put it in a lot of the videos. Okay, so you're doing it in VirtualBox. I've had a lot of problem in VirtualBox with the different interfaces, the bridge connections versus how it actually bridges the connection from your machine to the VirtualBox machines. You don't have to have a physical machine. It's totally uh, acceptable to use that in VirtualBox. It can be done. I have done it, but it's tricky to get those interfaces set up to how it actually stacks them on your Windows machine or your Linux box. So uh, I have been asked that a couple of times for VirtualBox. So we can try to reproduce that in maybe a live session, or I can make another video and we'll try to reproduce VirtualBox. But as of right now, I don't have a setup for it. I just have the physical setup. So what I've been trying to work on outside of normal issues is the HA environment, and I have deployed this cloud so many times that I'm not even sure what IP we're on right now. So if you just GG status, you're always going to come to this HA proxy address. So let's pop open 41. And we'll log in here. I deployed it probably about a half a dozen times yesterday. There's some people, so I've been working on trying to get this hardware corrected. So we were hitting a lot of hardware issues, and the hardware just wasn't good enough. Uh, so I scrounged around and found some people on eBay to give me some good deals on parts. I don't endorse these people, I don't I don't get any kickbacks from people on eBay, but there are a couple of good sellers that I've run into. Um, this Tech Vitality company, they mailed me a switch that didn't work, and it only cost like $25 or something like that. It didn't work, but I mailed it back to them. They sent me this Dell Power 2700 switch as a replacement, which is a great deal for what I paid for it. They're a good company. Uh, there's another person on there. I'll post the name of them, but they sell uh, RAM memory really cheap for a 780. I mean, they've got a couple of different kinds, but for a 780, it's like $18 or something like that shipped. It's a great deal, so we were able to add a lot of memory to this. Let's see, we've got another question up here. So we're just kind of going over, what the status of the cloud is, taking questions from you guys. If you're joining the stream late, just if you have questions about the cloud, maybe we can take a look at them. Again, this is going to be kind of a short live stream, but just wanted to start the idea that we're going to do some live streams here and there, and take questions from you guys. Have different events. This is the first one. Just going over what we've got so far. So I've got 7 nodes in this deployment. So everything is deployed. I've got 9 total right now. I wanted to tell you guys too that since I started adding more nodes, I know I've gone over the network configuration with you guys many times, but I've had to play around with the number of dynamic versus static IPs. I had this up to like 229, and then I ran it back down to 220 so that I could get a couple more additional static IPs because I was adding more machines. If you see the machine in MAS when you do a deploy, if it just sits here and allocated, it's probably because it can't get an IP. So adjust your network settings accordingly. So OpenStack dashboard, let's go ahead and pop that open. There's something else, this add hardware beta. I really want to try that out, so I have to get that other node commissioned. But we can do that here shortly. No, so I get that question a lot too. That 16.04. No, I'm not, and it's because, uh, yeah, I can. I will. I'll leave you my contact info, and you can send me an email, or you can send emails to openstackbasement@gmail.com. Uh, and there's a card on the stream somewhere that shows the website info. You can go out there too. You probably could deploy MAS on a Raspberry Pi. It'd be really slow. You'd have to get creative with your network interfaces, but you probably could. No, I'm not using 1604. We're using 1404 because 1604 defaults to MAS and Juju 2.0, and they are not. They still don't play well with each other. The deployment doesn't work. They don't support it yet. So everything cloud, Ubuntu, they do 1404 still. Let's see if we can get the dashboard to come up. Yeah, I actually have. I think I've got some Raspberry Pis available. Uh, I could probably give that a try at some point. Well, the dashboard doesn't want to come up, but that's not a surprise. Things don't always go very well. I have not. I have not tried Sahara. Uh, it's there's a lot of things that I haven't deployed yet. I get questions about putting Hadoop on things like that. I haven't tried that on OpenStack yet. Yeah, Ubuntu again. The version is 1404. And this version that I've deployed, I actually downloaded it like October 30th, and it's I stay up to date on the apt packages. But so the OpenStack dashboard doesn't want to cooperate, and you see in the videos a lot. I always come back to the OpenStack basement site for reference because you write these commands down once, you might as well use them. So we'll get in here. I will tell you, since we went to this 24 port, it's a 2724 power uh, Dell switch. Since I went to that, it has been a lot easier to move around in between the nodes and get Juju statuses and things like that. Um, it's unbelievable how much that helped. Just the network throughput in between the nodes has helped. So we've got RabbitMQ hook failed. That's not surprising. It happens a lot. And as always, the easiest way to diagnose this is through the Juju GUI. So let's get status on Juju GUI. Again, this has been deployed so many times. The best way to shut down a cluster. There is no good way to shut down a cluster, unfortunately. Uh, so Juju GUI hasn't been deployed. Uh, I have been able to shut it down and start it back up. There's a video out there where I did it. Um, but it doesn't always come back so smooth, unfortunately. I showed you on a video not too long ago that we have to use this root. We have to log in as root to get this thing to deploy in the internal. That is a bug, and there is a bug out there for that. So let's deploy the GUI. That'll take a minute. Yeah, shut down. I mean, so I've written shell scripts to update the cloud before, so and that's out there on the site. But uh, it ends up being just a bunch of apt get commands and updates, and then I reboot them. And when it comes back, the LXC containers don't always come up in the best state. Uh, so yeah, the shutdown process is not always the greatest. To configure DNS, um, yeah, I mean, if you take a look, I mean, configuring DNS shouldn't be that big a deal. You're probably getting blocked by a lookup or something like that. I would, if you're having issues, I would edit your interfaces file and put your DNS name servers entries. Just put it to 8.8.8.8 for Google, and that will be your most reliable. That will tell you if you put that in there and then reboot or restart networking, then you can. Then you'll be able to tell that if you can't register DNS off of that server, then you can't register it anywhere. Take a look at the OpenStack site. There's one that configure networking in either wake or something like that. I think that's what it's called. Um, yeah, right here. So I would set that to Google's DNS, or the 4.8s, and give that a try. Remember, you probably have to reboot or start networking to get that to pick it up. So in the internal environment, these always take a long time. And that's a problem. With the videos and the live streaming, that's always a problem for me because a lot of things when you kick it off, it takes a lot of time. So we've got a lot of dead air here, but if we get in and start, asking questions and things like that, we can take up a lot of this spare time. I really thought the region was in better shape than this, but I guess not. So we can go ahead and get this ready. So I don't know. So MAS changes all the time, right? But if you flip over to Mac, you can actually get its MAC address that we can feed into um, the power type. So open it up, and we'll just call this one. What are we on? 7 now? 7. Wow. So we'll just call this one node 7780. That might get confusing. That's okay. And wake on LAN, and then just put that MAC address in here. Save changes. And then we can let it commission. I don't know if you can see that in the web feed. Now it's kind of setting up here. It's sitting on the top of those two servers on the top rack, so you can't see it. That's okay. So we'll commission it and go. And I just heard it pop on. That's good. So that'll commission. Let's see what's going on with. There we go. Looks like the GG GUI's coming back. I really like the fact, and we'll show you, I showed you in the video not too long ago, but I really like the fact that they give you this command now instead of having to scrape that file. So if you're in your internal, it'll just dump that out. That's great. I like that. Okay, and we have a ton of red, so this is why things aren't happy. So where's RabbitMQ? RabbitMQ is having problems. Let's see if we can just resolve some of this. I always recommend, if you're having issues with the cloud after it's deployed, pull open the GUI because it's way easier than trying to locate the services with those big long commands. If you can just come in here and get things resolved. And the question about the shutdown and startup, if you shut this thing down and then you bring all the nodes back up, this thing is going to be really red. So come in here, try to resolve it, and hopefully you can get it going again. I have done Mirantis professionally. At my corporate, at the place I work, they did the Mirantis install. Uh, you're right. In some respects, Mirantis makes it easier because you don't have a hardware controller like Maz. You can use, you can use a lot of different things. You can incorporate chef and heat in anything, right? But uh, when you have a enterprise type environment, you have ILOs available on the servers. You can set up your teamed interfaces before you set up your Red Hat or whatever you want to put on the boxes before that. Um, it's a lot easier when you have that type of equipment. Since we're using desktop type of equipment, I really haven't found anybody that makes it any easier for environments like this. Home, just development type environments than Ubuntu. That landscape autopilot is really cool when it works. And they also incorporate, Ubuntu's done a good job at incorporating things into the OpenStack that some of the other versions might not have. Plus, the people uh, that work for Ubuntu and they work on the landscape installer and things like that. They're really helpful, and it doesn't matter if you have support or not. I don't. A lot of you have probably worked with Adam Stokes on the bug reporting. He's great to work with, and they get things tracked down pretty quickly. So that's kind of the reason why we're sticking to this version, is because it's just a little easier to deal with than some of the corporate, Red Hat environments, even like CentOS. It's a little easier on Ubuntu. Open Daylight controller. No, I have not. That one's not familiar to me. And some of these things just don't want to resolve. And that's usually because of the order that you resolve them in. Keystone's a big thing. That's what controls all your access. So if Keystone's not up and going, you're probably going to have a lot of problems. And so if you can't resolve it within the GUI, which we're making some pretty good progress actually. This stuff takes a while to resolve. Um, we'll have to get into log files and take a look, and then get into these services commands and try to fix it. Cloud controller. Let's see what we got here. Sure, yeah, just send all the comments. You can leave comments on the videos or whatever you want to, but I can even put it here in the chat. If you want to send me an email and remind me that we talked about this and what we're talking about, and there's the email address in the chat. Yeah, send me an email and we can talk about it. We can get on we can get on whatever communication you have and try to sort it out. Firewall in a cluster. Well, so that's a good comment. Security, I'm not a security person, but I work with it a lot. Uh, the clusters are really made to be, you know, inside an infrastructure, right? So if you use, if your infrastructure would be set up already with your firewalls and your F5s and load balancers and all that good stuff, and then your cluster would be setting inside. Now, there is a lot of back and forth. Well, should I put this cluster in this development cluster with my prod cluster, or where should things go? Uh, that that's kind of up to you. In an enterprise environment, you're probably going to want things separated so you can't climb over each other. But as far as firewall in the cluster, you would just be hurting yourself if you try to integrate that inside these clusters. There's just too much going on. So put them inside the infrastructure. Get a nice secure VPN connection to Amazon so you can offload work to AWS if you want to do something like that, or Google or Azure or whoever you want. But that's probably the best way to use OpenStack. Um, you want the flexibility and the security of the internal cloud, but you also want the growth, the expansion purposes of the external cloud. External is going to cost you a lot of money, but internal, it's not always so easy to grow it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody that's working in a basement just like me, uh, I'm glad to hear it. The more of us we get together testing this stuff, the easier it's going to be to use OpenStack. And feel free to every time you report a bug, that helps OpenStack. I mean, it really does. They look at these installers and try to figure out what's going on. They've done a really good job to help me, I know. We've held on bugs for months that I've hit, but they have got them resolved. So it's been really good working with the team. Let's try one more time for the dashboard here. Now that we've got some things resolved. See if we can get into the dashboard, then it will call out the services that we have that we're having an issue with. I mean, we can, it depends how long everybody wants to sit on this, right? But let's so there is a lot, like we've done a lot of troubleshooting in the past, right? You can go through this process of trying to troubleshoot all this through logs, but there's so many machines, uh, it's just a real headache. But so let's just jump into one of the machines. And we'll remove it. Okay, and let's grab that command again. Wow, somebody hacked your cluster. That's terrible. Uh, yeah, I mean, mine is pretty locked down. I mean, it's not the securest thing in the world, and there's really, nothing on it to get, right? There's no information. But I mean, I don't open. Mine's just a pretty simple firewall. I don't open the infrastructure out to the world. But yeah, that's not good. So that won't work as is because we copied it from the site. We got to go grab a password here, and we'll have to. So, and that's where in this file here. I highly recommend Notepad++. Just saying. Uh, 222 is where we're at. And this will tell us what our current hypervisors are. So Keystone is causing all the problems. Uh, we cannot authorize, we can't authenticate. And that's this guy right here. So what I would recommend, if you can't get this thing to resolve or retry, take a look at what the units are. So we've got one on 12, on 6, 12, 6, and 217. 12, 6, and 217. Let's see which one is calling out the errors. It's number 2. So it's on 6. So that's an LXC container, and I would recommend trying this first. And I've told a couple of people on the stream and on the videos before, it's not just your cloud that's broken. My cloud's broken all the time. So it's not an easy thing to manage or configure. So what do we say here? So get in that environment, and then you can ggussh to that one. I think it was 6. Bad memory. Yep. And we'll just send it a reboot command. And hopefully, when it comes up this time, it will be resolved. Yeah, HPC. Yeah, that's a really interesting configuration. Yeah, if you had a bunch of NVIDIA cards and you had a lot of power or something like that, a lot of big power supplies, that might be an interesting config. One nice thing about any container, right? Docker, LXCs, LXDs, whatever you have, uh, they reboot quick. So it's always the containers help a lot. And there you go. So Keystone's all cleaned up. Reboot helps everything, right? Reboot saved me a lot of times over the years. So let's try to resolve this hook for the cloud controller. Now the Keystone's back up. And now that Keystone's functioning again, those commands should start working now. Still doesn't like it. 222. That's that other Keystone server. So just for fun, let's reboot 222 again. Or as well. So I see that, yeah, did you resolve your DNS issue? Are you able to ping Google and do lookups now? And we might get a light on our Keystone server while that one's rebooting. Just can't get to that API. Okay, excellent. I'm glad you got your issue resolved. Yeah, that's exactly right. Amazon will never tell us. Uh, you know, that's a big question. Google's the same way, right? But people like Facebook, they use these hyper-converged systems. Uh, if you've done any research on the open hardware initiative, they buy these really cheap um, units that have all solid state and CPUs in them, and they rack them together on these 10 gig networks. And there's just thousands of them in a cluster. And so when one they're all supporting each other. So when one has a problem, they just pull it out, throw it away, get another one, stick it back in. That's their model, and it turns out to be cheaper because you don't have to troubleshoot it. Once it's up, it's up, and it never comes back down. But they do replication across the WAN and to different sites, things like that. So I'm guessing Amazon and Google probably do the same type of thing. I know they probably use OpenStack on Z hardware or something like that as well for development because it's cheap. But uh, yeah, lots of farms, cluster farms, uh, hyperconverged infrastructure. That's kind of where it's at. Okay, so we haven't had any luck here. Whoa, that was loud. Yep, same thing. Keystone errors, and I've seen these errors a lot of times. We have a relationship problem, is what actually is causing the issue. So let's take a look at status. I like to grep for messages sometime, just to see if there's anything interesting out there. HA proxy isn't running. See what else we have. Hook failed. There's one. I think it's HA proxy that's causing us the problem. Let's take a look at these. Oh, there's got to be something called HA proxy out there, right? Oh, let's just search for it then. So anybody that just joined the stream, this is just kind of a test stream for us, seeing what people want to talk about on the cloud. We're kind of doing some light troubleshooting here. Don't want to get anything too strenuous. Just wanted to make sure everything was working on the streaming, and we'll probably schedule some of these later and see that that's the problem. See OpenStack dashboard, we can't get into that. It's because we've got an HA proxy issue. If you have anything that you want to look at, if you're having problems on your cloud, just throw it in the chat there, and we can take a look at it. But again, what I was saying, we'll schedule some of these and just kind of go over what everybody's been having a problem with. Okay, so there's the keystone issue, even though it's not lighting in the Juju GUI, which it probably should since it can't connect. The HA configuration is very interesting, but it really makes things a lot more complicated. So you get a lot of errors like this. Okay, there's all the hardware. Let's see. So the hardware looks pretty good. Everything's in time. That's good. I don't even think there's a charm for HA proxy in the internal. I could be wrong though. I know there's one in the external. Well, that's a good question. As I learn as I go as well. Let's take a look at the initial bootstrap, see what its condition is. That is correct. Bugs are part of the cloud, and it is open source. What do you expect, right? So there's HA proxy. Let's take a look at the external here, HA. So it's 0, right? It's on 41. Let's kick it over and try to get it to restart here. Public key. You run into that a lot, unfortunately. But Juju SSH should allow you to do that. I know this isn't going to work, but oh, it did work. All right. Now I'm going to turn that off because that's pretty annoying. This might cure our HA proxy issue. Okay, let's jump back in here. Yep, service is still not running. So during the reboot, we have lost connectivity, uh, or at some point failure has occurred, and we've lost connectivity with the proxy. Can't get out. Let's try to resolve this cluster controller. It's usually just one simple service, too, that's causing all the issues. There's so many of them, it's going to be hard to retry the services. Well, we're not having much luck for this one. I think we got our other machine added. Yep, it's ready. It's only got 4 gig right now. I've got another 4 coming for that one, so it'll be a little better. Well, since our cloud is not doing very well right now, I'm guessing the easiest thing to do to resolve this is probably a redeploy. I mean, that's the easy way out, right? But we don't want to take up a ton of time trying to troubleshoot this. I would like to know, I've never actually tried this. Um, since we have this extra machine here, let's see what it does when we add it. It, it says beta on it, so who knows if it actually works. Well, that's a good question. Would I deploy MAS in a corporate environment? Um, yes and no. So it's stable to some extent, right? Landscape. So we'll back up a little bit. So MAS is kind of the hardware controller, right? But so Landscape for monitoring just Unix instances, Ubuntu instances, it works really well. It's very scalable and it's been around for quite a while. It's a paid for service, of course, but um, so monitoring with Landscape actually does, I think it serves a purpose and it's very useful because a lot of people are using Blade Logic and other tools to try to monitor things and control machines and automate things. Landscape does a pretty good job of that. Um, Now with MAS is kind of if you had uh, the enterprise level, power controller of some kind, or that would give you a lot. You would have to totally get away from Wake on LAN, right? It's not. It, it's not reliable enough to do a corporation. Uh, but I think if you had mass set up with multiple regions, multiple controllers, I think that it would make a solid hardware management device. But you'd have to build in a lot of redundancy, multiple servers, and really, it's nice to be able to scale up and scale down with MAS, but in the enterprise, you really don't do it anyway. So um, you can you can build OpenStack manually on Ubuntu without MAS. You can get around it. Uh, I don't know how much further Ubuntu is going to go with MAS, but it's kind of a neat thing. I think you could use it, but probably it would be a better in a corporate environment. It'd be better to deploy it without it currently. So that's the bet. That's as good as I can do on that question. I realize that I'm kind of skating around some things, but I've never tried it, so I don't know. So it looks like it is bootstrapping that Juju machine. Let's take a look at syslog. And you've seen in the videos I raised that DHCP timeout to like 5 minutes. That's why it's so noisy in here. Well, we'll add this hardware. We'll see what it does after it bootstraps here. Uh, we'll add the hardware, see where it puts it, and then that'll probably be the end of this stream for now, unless we get some other people on that have some questions. But I don't know for sure now. Still trying to bootstrap. Let's see if it's actually deployed. It has deployed, that's good. I'm guessing that when you add hardware like this, it's just going to make it a compute node, but I don't know that for sure. Well, it looks like this takes forever, just like everything else when you deploy. Let's see if it's already in the machine. It should already be in the machine list and give us an idea of what's being deployed on it. It is not in the machine list. So it hasn't made it that far yet. Oh, there it is. Still pending. It's only got 4 gig of memory. It might take it a while. Okay. Oh, we're getting further. That's something I've also mentioned. I want to, so the high availability, it's a pain. It adds a lot of LXC containers but I mean you know, that's what high availability is for, right? Looks like it's bringing in a Ceph node. That's cool. Um, so it adds a lot of complexity, but I really want to test it. And I want to get to the point where I can just unplug one of these machines and figure out what it does. So maybe we'll do that on a live stream. I also would like a good upgrade plan for hardware, and that goes back to kind of the Maz conversation. How do I take a box out of Maz, fix it, or add something to it, and redeploy it and put it back in the cloud? What is the process for that? Maybe we can come up with something. Not a lot of documentation out there, unfortunately, but maybe we can test it out. How many machines is it running on? Uh, my Maz just runs on one machine. I only have one Maz server, and I have 9 nodes now total um, that are configured on the Maz box. And that's something to note. You can only have 10 seats in landscape, 10 actual seats. You can have a bunch of LXC seats. So I've got 7 registered, so I could go a little further, but not much. Oh, very cool. Yeah, uh, that's some pretty cool testing um, for DDoS attacks. Yeah, upgrading Juju. It depends what version you came from or went to, but um, it can be really difficult to try to maintain the environment if you upgrade it on the fly. So far, so good on 1.9, which we're using right now, but 2.0 is going to change everything. It's not even available on 14.04. I don't believe it ever will be. So we'll jump into that when we get to 16.04. And you've probably seen the video about the 16.04 deploy. I think I get more questions about that as like, what happened? What happened after that? Nothing. I was never able to get around the bugs to get it deployed. It's frustrating, but 14.04 seems to be working right now. And if you go to the cloud page for Ubuntu, they recommend it. In their install doc, it says right there 14.04. This is 1.9. Maz is 1.9 something something. Yep. 194. So there it is right there. So let's see if we can just get a status on 7. You should be able to just do that. Yeah, me too. I really want to get into testing 2.0. After we do a little more testing on this version, we'll start trying to deploy again. I need to poke around and ask some more questions about where the community is at with that. But 5, there's 6. So 7 has been started. It's not deploying the machine. Um, yeah, that I mean there could be all kinds of different problems there. So it kind of depends at what point. Are you just issuing um, oh, but you're on a much later version of OpenStack. Yeah. Um, I'm guessing it's probably so if you're on 16.04 Ubuntu, I don't know what OS you're running. Uh, you're probably running into the GG 2.0, and that's what's causing your issues with the Maz deploy. Plus, it doesn't offer any power control that I know of. Last time I checked, it didn't offer any power control. So you're stuck with manual, or if you have a elaborate setup, you can use something else. But I've never seen that. That's probably the issue. It's just a really, really new version of OpenStack. So we've been waiting for this for a while. But anyway, so the stream's running about an hour, so I don't want to waste anybody's time. That's for sure. So we've got HA proxy issue. We've tried to add this machine, um, but again, this is kind of the first live stream. Wanted to just try it out with you guys and see if this is helpful. I didn't schedule it or anything like that. You guys just jumped on probably from the email or whatever. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming to the first live stream. Uh, Let me know in the comments what you think. When are good times to do these? We can again, we'll schedule one. We'll talk about wherever you want to. I'll make sure the cloud is ready to go, all set up. Uh, you are very welcome for my effort. It's my pleasure. Uh, I enjoy doing this stuff. I like sharing it with you guys. I like hearing what you're doing. You guys help me with my cloud problems just as much as I help you. So anything I can help you with, let me know. And we'll do this again really soon. Oh, Sunday is always good. Okay, excellent. That's good to know. Uh, that's it for this one, guys. We'll be a little more prepared next time. We'll let you know when it's coming. Thanks a lot for joining.